we by?
We're just heading south of Beaumont, or north of Beaumont.
We're heading north of Beaumont. Yo, where are we going?
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Weeknight Mysteries podcast. This is episode number 18. My name is Yuras, and today I'm joined, as always, with my co-host, Rain. How are you feeling?
Hi, Yuras, and hi, everybody. I'm feeling completely great. How are you today?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling excited to talk about a case. It has been a bit of a pause for us. We have missed a few episodes already due to some holiday travels, but we want to assure our audience members that we are full on track and we're going to keep going with these podcasts.
Back and running.
Exactly. Today we're going to be talking about the Amber Alyssa Tuccaro's murder case. This is a First Nations Canadian woman. First Nations people are basically like Native Americans, but like from Canada.
Native Canadians.
Pretty much, but we call them First Nations. So this woman was murdered in August of 2010. She was initially from Fort McMurray, which is in the state of Alberta. She went missing in 2010, and her body was actually found 2 years later in 2012. Her cause of death was presumed murder. I think it was murder. Well, we definitely suspect it was murder because of the circumstances. And there's some spooky stuff happening here, and we're going to jump into all of these details. I think we should just start with kind of the brief introduction of what happened, and stop me at any point during the podcast if you want to add anything, because I have my notes out here. And let's get going. So Amber Tuccaro, she was from Mikisew Cree First Nation. She was from the Cree Native Peoples, let's say, group.
Oh, so there are multiple groups.
Yeah, there's multiple, but the Cree people are actually one of the biggest groups of, original people from Canada before settlers came in, right? She was living in Fort McMurray shortly before her disappearance and subsequent murder. She was 20 years of age at the time of her murder. She lived with her mother. Now, her mother was Tootsie Tuccaro. She also had a young son named Jacob. Jacob was Amber's son, her only child, and he was 14 months old. Now, from what we gather, I don't really remember any kind of information about his father. So,
no information about the father.
Yeah, so the father is not in the picture, it seems like.
Yeah, not in the picture. Nope.
It was also reported that Amber was extremely close with her family, especially her mother, Tootsie. She apparently also struggled to provide financially for her and her 14-month son, Jacob. She had moved between her family's home, I would assume in the same Fort McMurray, and a local women's shelter named Unity House. Now, it was in this exact shelter that Amber met a woman named Evangeline Maclean. Now, Evangeline Maclean is an interesting character in this case. And, she is the last one who had any contact with Amber before she was most likely abducted. We will get into the details very soon. Now, the interesting part is that Evangeline Maclean, this woman, right? She had, Amber had only met this woman, Evangeline, 2 weeks prior to her disappearance. So 2 weeks after they met, and they actually met in that women's shelter.
Yeah.
So seems like this Evangeline woman also comes from a troubled background to some extent. I mean, why else would she be spending time in Unity House,
That's
women's
true.
shelter.
That's true.
So she was also probably escaping some sort of abuse or something like that. I did look into her Instagram a little bit because if you type in Evangeline Maclean, you can actually find her Instagram. She has her profile set to public, so you can actually see her profile. Mostly it's like her own life and then joking about how she drinks all the time. Pretty much. Like a woman
Nothing
who,
out of the ordinary.
no, I wouldn't say so. A woman in her 30s at this point, I would say, maybe early 40s. So nothing too suspicious, right? So let's get back really quickly to the story here because so Amber meets this woman, Evangeline, 2 weeks before she is killed. And she meets this woman in the women's shelter.
It was a new friendship then.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. And now the two of them had decided to go on a spontaneous trip together with Amber's 14-month-old son Jacob to the capital of Alberta, which is this city called Edmonton. Now, Edmonton is a major Canadian city. It has over 1 million people living there. I think it's like the 5th biggest city in Canada. Now, they decide to head out on August 17th, 2010. So this was late summer. Also, I'd like to mention that on August 17th, 2010, the woman that, Amber met at Unity House, this Evangeline Maclean, actually came by the Tuccaro residence and invited the young mother to fly with her from Fort McMurray to Edmonton. So why I'm bringing this up really quickly is because at the time of the departure, Amber was already living with her mother, I would assume, at the Tuccaro residence. So we have very little information about this Evangeline person. Was she still living at the shelter? Was she already out of the shelter by the time they decided to go on this trip? Why are they bringing the 14-month-old Jacob?
Yeah, it's a very interesting thing for sure. It was a 2-week friendship and they already decided to spend, a night away?
No, that's another very mysterious thing that we do not have an answer for.
Oh, we
is
didn't know how long it was supposed
We
to
don't
be.
know how long it was supposed to be. We don't know why they're going to begin with. It just was reported online that this was a spontaneous trip to Edmonton. That's all we have at this point.
Interesting.
Spontaneous trip to Edmonton, bringing the 14-month-old son Jacob. I mean, what can you do with a 14-month-old kid?
Exactly, yeah.
You can't do much, right? And it's only 2 people, so they have to take him always with them, which doesn't make any sense. You're already at your mother's place. Why not leave Jacob with your mother? I mean, maybe there's some sort of a situation where maybe the mother works and
Yeah.
can't take care of Jacob, or maybe a situation like that where Amber needs to have the custody of needs to kind of
Bring Jacob along.
yeah.
Yep.
But we do not know this information. This was a very vague kind of trip reported, at least online,
Yeah.
Okay, so they flew from the Fort McMurray, which is a city in the more northern part of Alberta, I would say, to Edmonton, which is a little bit more south. It's kind of in the middle, I think, of Alberta. To save money, they actually booked a room outside of the city at Nisku Place Motel in Nisku, Alberta, which was just a few kilometers east of Edmonton International Airport. So an interesting thing about Edmonton is that the Edmonton International Airport is not even in Edmonton. It's kind of a little bit south from Edmonton.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how much, maybe like just a handful of kilometers south from Edmonton, in this little town called Nisku. And they actually stayed in this really cheap Nisku motel to save money, which is once again pretty interesting. Like the whole trip just seems suspicious. Now, they land on the 17th. I do not have the timestamp of when they landed. The flight couldn't have taken too long because, it's in the same state. So not that long.
Yeah.
But the next day, on the 18th, Amber decided that she wanted to go into the city, and Evangeline agreed to watch Jacob
Wait, did it happen morning or nighttime?
in the evening
Okay.
on the following day. So we have no idea, at least I didn't find this information when they landed
Yeah.
in Nisku, and we have no idea what they did on the first day, on the 17th. It's a mystery. Obviously, Jacob is not going to tell us because he's 14.
14 months old.
14 months old, sorry. And then at the same time, I would like to mention the fact that I think the account that I'm giving you right now comes from Evangeline.
Okay.
And also, it's worth mentioning that Amber was very close with her mother,
Yeah.
and she was texting her a lot. So I think the account is still somewhat credible because there is proof in the pudding, meaning that there's at least text messages that were sent from Amber to Tootsie, her mother. So Evangeline couldn't have possibly falsified the whole story, because at this point we have to start thinking, what does Evangeline know?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you more about it, why Evangeline is kind of a person of interest, at least in my eyes, in this case, right? Now, the next day happens. We have no idea what they were doing for most of the 18th,
Yeah.
honestly. And the evening comes on the 18th, and now miraculously, Amber decides to go to the city alone.
Yeah, this is very interesting to me because
Yeah.
if you remember, they met 2 weeks ago. It was a new friendship, and well, it's pretty obvious that Amber trusted Evangeline way too much to leave Jacob with her. But at the same time, what could be the reason why Amber would want to go to the city late at night?
Late at night, and then to leave Jacob with a woman that you've met 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, right?
It's pretty interesting, and now as we talk, I'm starting to think, is there a chance that there's a hidden motive happening? Like, for example, maybe there's some money to be made or something. Because think about it from this perspective. Amber met Evangeline 2 weeks ago. Both of them met at very dire circumstances in a women's shelter.
Yeah.
Maybe there was a plot to kind of get some money, because there's no other explanation why this kind of trip even materialized in the first place. Maybe Amber was gonna do was gonna do something to get them money. No, I'm not saying like sex work or anything like that. I'm just saying maybe there's some sort of a scheme for them to get paid basically on the 18th, but the only way they're gonna get paid is if Amber actually goes to Edmonton alone, allegedly. Do you know what I mean? Because
I have a point.
because it doesn't add up at all otherwise, at least in my opinion. Like, you are, and apparently she really loved her son, so you're not
Yeah.
gonna leave your 14-month-old son with a woman you just met 2 weeks ago. It just doesn't add up.
Exactly. If it was the other way around, if this happened to Evangeline, then it's completely normal, right?
Yeah.
Evangeline left in the middle of the night, left Amber and Jacob alone. It would have been a completely normal circumstance, but I don't know, this part is a little weird.
The weirdness comes from the fact that she left the son,
Yeah.
right? I mean, we're both agreeing on that, right?
There was a reason, and there probably is a great reason behind it, but we just don't know what that is. Or
Exactly.
what that was.
Or if this is even what's happening, because I think this is where Evangeline's account comes into play. Like, this is the only thing we know about the story from her.
And she probably knows something, but it's either she's scared to say it, or she doesn't have any intention to say or like tell her part of the story.
Just a quick disclaimer, she could be completely innocent, and this could legit be what is happening. It's just very hard to to kind of grasp
Yep.
without getting more context here, at least for
Exactly.
us, right? Now let's move on. Okay, so what's happening next is pretty interesting because Amber was last seen on the day at about 8 p.m. in the evening. So on their second day at the Nisku at 8 p.m. in the evening, she accepted a ride into Edmonton from an unknown man. So let's remember Edmonton is like 10 kilometers up north, something like that, right?
It's not that far.
It's not that far, but she we don't know. She accepted a ride into Edmonton from an unknown man. Now, this is all we have. So there's a million questions. First of all, how did Amber find this man? Who reported seeing her last?
Oh, that's a really good question.
What's the description of this man? What kind of a car was he driving? So I found information online that she accepted a ride into Edmonton from an unknown man. How do we know it? Who saw this?
Who reported it?
Who reported it? Because
But I'm pretty sure it was just a regular hitchhike. Like maybe she was waiting on the side of the road, waiting for someone to pick her up.
yeah,
Somebody picked her up, maybe completely random, who
Yeah.
knows? But you have a really good question there.
yeah,
Who was the one who reported it? Who was the one who have last seen her? Why isn't
Yeah.
there a description of the car? Right?
yeah, exactly. And we have a pretty specific time point, 8 p.m. So it seems like someone,
Saw her definitely.
yeah, or maybe she left at 8 p.m.
Maybe there was a CCTV footage about this?
Yeah, basically, we don't have this information, and I think the Canadian authorities were fairly hush regarding this particular detail, so we don't know much as I read this. So once again, just a lot of mystery here surrounding the whole situation.
And missing information.
Yeah, let's move on. Amber's okay. Before we move on, I want to kind of also give you this. Just build a picture in your head.
Okay.
Amber meets a woman that she does not know very well. 2 weeks prior,
Yes.
this woman comes over to their home on a random day. I don't even know. Suggests a spontaneous trip to Edmonton for who knows why. Tootsie says to Amber, "You should not go. This sounds fishy." But Amber says, "No, I'm still going, and
Yeah.
I'm bringing my 14 months old son with me." They land in Nisku. We don't know what they do on day 1. We don't know what they do on day 2. Sometime in day 2 in the evening, she leaves her child with this woman that she doesn't know to go into Edmonton, accepts a ride from an unknown person. Shady.
Shady, yeah, definitely. But her decision to hitchhike is also probably practical because you'll have to remember she was strapped for money. So maybe she was thinking about the taxi rates, and hitchhiking would save her a lot of money going back and forth. Maybe
Yeah.
at that point she didn't know it was dangerous, or it would just lead her
Yeah.
to something terrible.
Also, Amber had the history of hitchhiking apparently because her mother had gave her warnings about hitchhiking before.
There we go.
Okay, Amber's mother Tootsie became worried when Amber suddenly stopped communicating with her via texts. The two usually talked throughout the day. Now, the next morning on August 19th, so this is day 3 of this adventure, Evangeline contacted Tootsie and said that Amber had left in the night without Jacob. Tootsie then immediately called the Royal Canadian Mounted Police to report Amber missing, but they did not take her call seriously. Now, Tootsie says that the police told her, well, maybe she's out partying and she will call or whatever, and she was not interviewed for 4 months. So basically the police, they really botched this whole operation.
Definitely. Damn.
Yeah, now let's move a couple of weeks forward, on September 4th, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police announced that they had no reason to believe that Amber was in danger and that they knew she was still alive in the Edmonton area, because apparently they were tipped off that Amber is now active on social media and that she's posting pictures or something like that in the Edmonton area. So law enforcement actually 2 weeks into her disappearance didn't even think of double checking if those posts were actually credible. They just
I was thinking the same thing.
They didn't
This
check
is very
it.
interesting.
Yeah, they didn't check it. And 2 weeks into, this woman is clearly missing. Left her 14-month-old baby with a woman that she recently met and is now missing still. How are you not investigating?
Exactly.
On August 28th of 2012, so actually exactly 2 years after, pretty much, after she went missing, the Royal Canadian Police released a recorded cell phone call that Amber Tuccaro had while in the car of the unknown man. The call was retrieved or obtained in the first place because the person Amber was on the phone with was her incarcerated brother, and the facility where he was held recorded all outgoing phone calls. So what's happening here is that Amber probably became suspicious of the driver and called her brother, knowing it would be recorded, as her mother Tootsie had previously advised her to pretend to be on the phone call as a safety precaution while hitchhiking. And now a male driver can be heard in the background assuring Amber that they are heading east on a back road towards Edmonton. The man insisted that he was driving north to 50th Street. Amber repeated what he was telling her to her brother. On the other end of the phone, however, the call ended abruptly.
Wait, I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you think Amber called her brother, or is it the other way around?
Definitely Amber called her brother. I think it would be way too much of a coincidence if the incarcerated brother managed to call Amber at the same time as she was getting abducted. No way, right?
Great coincidence, right?
Impossible. But I know what you're
Improbable.
saying. Yeah, I mean, but I think she called him. Because she knew, okay, this guy is really suspicious.
Yeah.
We're not going into Edmonton. We're going in some dirt roads. And I'm in danger right now. I need to call my brother who's incarcerated because the jail is going to record this phone call.
That's a very smart move.
Amazing. Like, I would never think about doing that in that moment, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And now what the crazy thing was that just 4 days after law enforcement released this audio, because law enforcement initially released the audio because they were asking the public to identify the man, the man's voice, the abductor's voice. 4 days after the audio was released, Amber's partial skeletal remains, including her skull, were found on the 1st of September 2012 by horseback riders on a farmer's field in Leduc County. The area was just south of her motel room. Her remains were positively identified by dental records, but as of now, her case still remains unsolved. So police released 61 seconds of audio, but the full audio of that phone call is actually 17 minutes in total. So the full conversation that she had with her brother, I believe, was 17 minutes, but only on the 61 seconds, maybe the culprit is heard or something like that.
Yeah.
Which, now the 17 minutes actually corresponds almost directly to the amount of time it would take to drive from the motel where Amber was staying to the site where her body was found 2 years later, which which was on a rural property in Leduc County.
This is such a sad case.
It's a sad case, but this tells us something. You know what this tells us? This tells us that Amber was murdered very soon after the call ends abruptly.
Oh crap.
Because
you're right.
Yeah, because where she was murdered or where her body was found corresponds to the ending of the phone call from the timeline perspective. So when the call ends abruptly, we can pretty much say that she was murdered very soon after.
Oh, wow. That's pretty creepy.
It's pretty creepy.
Yeah.
Her case is among the high number of missing and murdered Indigenous women of Canada. And we will get into something very, very important here. And the question is there a serial killer on the loose sometime in the early 2000s in Leduc County, Alberta? And all of this is coming after a short break. Okay, welcome back. We're now gonna listen to the phone call that was released, to the 61-second portion of the phone call that was released by law enforcement. So I'm gonna play it, and hopefully, guys, you can hear this. This is gonna be playing from my phone, so hopefully this is okay. Okay, let's do this.
Hi.
We're just heading south of Beaumont, or north of Beaumont.
We're heading north to Beaumont. Yo, where are we going? No, this is Are you fucking kidding me? You better not take me anywhere I don't want to go. I want to go into the city. Jeez. Yo, we're not going in the city, are we? No, we're not. Then where are these roads going to?
50th Street.
50th Street. Are you sure?
Absolutely.
Yo, where are we going?
50th Street.
50th Street.
50th Street.
East, right? Over town. Bravo. Bravo.
We're just heading south.
Yeah, so that's crazy, right? Now, I want to quickly go over what's being said. So let's react, okay?
All right.
So the call that we have is, firstly, Amber says, "Where are we by?" And the unknown male says, "We're just south of Beaumont, north of Beaumont." So heading south. So he's saying we're just heading south of Beaumont, and then he says, "Oh no, north of Beaumont." Now Beaumont is actually this city, kind of also close to Nisku and close to Edmonton. It's kind of in the middle, but a little bit to the east. It's kind of hard to describe, but so the man basically was saying that they're already heading north of Beaumont. So if you would go north of Beaumont, you would actually end up in Edmonton in a little
Didn't
bit.
he say they're going south first?
Yeah, but he said like we're just heading south, and then north of Beaumont. So he was like fucking
Clearly
up.
lying.
Yeah. Now, what happened next was
We're heading north to Beaumont. Yo, where are we going?
Amber basically seemed like she was even on the call with someone, like with her brother, and she said to the brother, "We're heading north of Beaumont," almost like to let her brother know where this man is taking her. Then she says, "Yo, where are we going?" Because probably it didn't add up, you know. She was probably getting spun around in some dirt roads at this point. It's very, very messed up. Yep.
Does she sound drunk to you?
Drugged?
Drunk.
Drunk?
Or drug. Could be both.
No, this is Are you fucking kidding me?
Maybe.
She sounds a little drunk to me.
Maybe, yeah. I would not. I have no idea, honestly. But is she sounding a little intoxicated?
A little, yeah.
Potentially. Maybe that's how
Like
she
a
talks.
tipsy kind of drunk.
Yeah.
You better not take me anywhere I don't want to go.
Yeah, she kind of maybe has a little tipsy.
Maybe that's how she normally sounded, but kind of sounds a little tipsy to me.
Yeah, let's finish up this recording.
I go into the city. Hey. Yo, we're not going into the city, are we? No, we're not.
She basically confronted this man, said, yo, we're not going into the city. And then the guy was like, we are.
Where's road going to?
50th Street.
And he says the 50th street. Now the 50th street, the only 50th street that I was able to find was actually this kind of 50th street in Edmonton. So there is a street called like the 50th street in Edmonton, but it's nowhere, like there's no way you're gonna drive east of Nishku past North Beaumont to get to the 50th street. It just doesn't add up. Seems like this man knew about this 50th street and just was giving this information out to Amber to confuse the person on the other end of the phone call. You know what I mean? So I think both of them are playing mind games at this point. Amber is basically, her strategy is to tell her brother all about her whereabouts, while the unknown man is already playing games, and he is actually trying to confuse the guy on the phone, on the other end of the phone call.
Or just Amber.
Both, everyone. He knows he's probably getting recorded, or someone else is getting this information.
I don't know. He sounds quite frantic to me. Like he doesn't know what to say or do. Because clearly at the very beginning of the audio, he said, we're going south, north. I feel like he's kind of, at that point, maybe Amber was kind of making a big deal out of it, kept on asking questions, and it made him frantic.
He wasn't expecting this.
Yeah.
Right.
50th Street.
50th Street. Are you sure?
Absolutely.
No, where are we going?
Absolutely.
50th Street.
50th Street.
50th Street.
He repeated 50th Street a couple of times.
East, right?
East. But it doesn't make sense to go east because Edmonton is north.
Yeah. Do you think he's taking advantage of the fact that Amber wasn't a local of Edmonton?
Oh, yeah.
Definitely, right?
I think so. The ending is very suspicious to me because look at the ending. The ending, we don't know what Amber says. Okay, we don't know what Amber says because the transcript that I found says that Amber's last words are
unintelligible, muffled.
Yeah, unintelligible. Basically, we can't say. But I think what she says is pull over. Now listen closely. Do you hear pull over? I almost hear pull over now, like she's demanding him to pull over. Listen.
Uh-huh.
And the guy says gravel.
Kind of heard stop from Amber.
Stop?
At the very, very end, yeah.
Stop?
The
Okay,
very
let's
tail of
listen
it.
one more time.
East, right?
He pull over now. And the guy said something and she said stop. No?
Perhaps, but the man says gravel. Maybe he's saying I can't pull over because this is gravel. Makes no sense though.
Yeah.
Anyways, we're done listening to the phone call, so that's how it ended. Your
Okay.
reactions?
What is your opinion about the guy's voice, the man's voice?
I would say
Like, picture him in your head as you were listening to the audio.
a man in his definitely no younger than 40.
Definitely, yep.
Even would probably bet that he's over 50, above 50. So a middle-aged man sounds like he could be anyone.
Yeah.
Like a very typical man's voice. What do you make of this phone call? What does that voice tell? What does it tell to you?
Tell to me. Well, honestly, I don't want to sound discriminatory. It sounds like an old man, no younger than 40. The sound kind of seems like he's Caucasian.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's actually a very... Yeah, I just can't imagine...
Yeah, having a person of color with that voice, right?
Yeah, just sound like your typical white guy.
Yeah, like a Caucasian man with a hint of like farm-ish accent. Am I even saying it correctly?
No,
Like
you are like rural.
Like a hint of that.
Yep. That's a very good point.
Don't you? Like
I do.
yeah.
I agree.
So that's the picture of that guy in my head, but of course I'm just making assumptions.
And now, how did he even? What was he doing? Was he looking for victims in Nishku? What was he doing? Was he? If he's looking for victims in Nishku in particular, how did he end up with Amber? If he's looking for victims, if he's done this in the past, he's probably looking for a certain type of woman, probably potentially a sex worker, and I'll tell you why in a bit. Would Amber kind of be in these circles? Like if he's looking for victims, for potentially vulnerable women, maybe just hitchhikers. Maybe Amber was hitchhiking at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah.
I don't know. Any kind of thoughts on that?
I don't know, he sounds very frantic, so I don't think he's done it before, or probably he has, but at the same time, it's probably a new experience for him.
Sorry.
It's probably a new experience for him. Amber was very smart, and she was asking a lot of questions. She actually made him frantic. So I don't know if it was because he hasn't done it before, or he wasn't just used to having someone actually fighting back.
Right. So you're saying is that there's a good chance that this guy wasn't used to this type of a situation.
Yeah, based on the audio. Because if he was used to it, he wouldn't be as frantic. He would have known. He would have been sleeker, I guess, smoother.
Yeah.
What do you think?
No, I think you have very good insights here. I agree.
Thank you.
Let's move on to something very important.
All right.
Was there a serial killer on the loose? You know why? Okay, CBS Aboriginal Unit has found at least 15 unsolved cases of Indigenous women who vanished or were murdered in and around the Edmonton area. The partial remains of 4 of these missing women, including Amber Tuccaro, were all found within a few kilometers of each other in Leduc County.
Oh, what? Oh, wait. Okay, never mind. I'll take it back. Maybe that guy was a serial killer.
Maybe, right? Potentially, because think about this perspective. There are 5 in total women from very similar backgrounds, fairly vulnerable women who were found dead and murdered in Leduc County, and all within like 8 kilometers, all within 10 years, spanning from 2002 with the final victim Amber Tuccaro, 2010. So in the 8-year period, in the 8-kilometer kind of, let's say, radius, give or take, in Leduc County, this very rural county with only 14,000 people living in it, kind of south from Edmonton, can't be a coincidence. We have a serial killer on the loose. No way around it.
Or serial killers.
Multiple people, yeah, but someone's definitely committing crimes.
Do you think it's made by one person or multiple ones? Multiple different ones?
Let's jump into the victims and then let's try to answer your question.
Perfect.
So the first victim out of these 5 were Edna Bernard. She was a 28-year-old mother of 6 boys. She was from Whitefish Lake First Nation, a Cree community in Alberta. Her remains were found the day after her murder on September 22nd in the year of 2002 in the field in Leduc County. She had apparently been beaten, strangled, and set on fire. Edna's mother, Cecil, said her daughter was going to meet a friend at an Edmonton nightclub. That friend, known as Darlene, said that she last saw Edna Bernard in a vehicle with unknown people. According to one family member, Edna spent time in foster care as a child. As a teenager, she was exposed to the sex trade and later on to drugs. So apparently she was also working as a prostitute in the local area. She was going to meet a friend at the nightclub. This friend reports her that she was last seen in a vehicle with unknown men, multiple men, or multiple people, sorry, so it could be not just men. But that's what we have, Edna. Now let's move to the second victim. Katie Sylvia Ballantyne was a 40-year-old mother of 4. She was a sex trade worker as well. She had been reported missing on May 5th, 2003, so kinda a year later, by a friend who had said she had last seen her 8 days prior to that in Edmonton. So she's last seen in Edmonton in late April. Now in July 7th of 2003, the same year, so a couple months later, the badly decomposing remains of Katie Ballantyne were found in a farm field near Road 235 and north of Township Road 500. According to Edmonton Journal, her father was Greek and her mother was a native Canadian person. So she was last seen in Edmonton. We don't have any much more information other than that she was also trading her, I think, sex for drugs. So she's kind of from that kind of a lifestyle.
There's a pattern
so far.
Yeah.
So these 2 murders happened within 2 years of each other, within 1 year of each other. Let's jump to Dolores Brower, who was known as Spider locally. That was her nickname. She was a 32-year-old Metis woman, which is another kind of, another group of native Canadian people. She was reported missing in June of 2005, so now we're jumping a couple of years later. An investigation revealed that she was last seen hitchhiking in the early hours of May 12th of 2004. According to, she was reported missing only way later after she was last seen. I don't know why that happened. Maybe no one just reported her missing for a very long time initially, because she went missing on May 12th. Of 2004. According to a former police officer, Dolores was actually trying to leave the sex trade. On April 19th in 2015, 10 years after she was last reported missing, her remains were discovered on a rural property near Rowley View in Alta. Until now, the police haven't determined how she died. Apparently, after 10 years, her remains were so decomposed there was no telling how she was murdered.
That's sad.
Now, let's jump to a woman named Corey Renee Ottenbreit. This woman, Corey, and the previously mentioned Dolores, aka Spider, are 100% connected. Because now, Corey, she was not indigenous, she was Caucasian, but she was involved in street sex work as well. She was a 27-year-old sex worker who regularly met with clients along 118 Avenue in northeast Edmonton. She was last seen by a family member at 10 p.m. on Sunday, May 9th, 2004, when she left her home with the stated intention of going to work, probably selling sex. Her remains were found at the same time as Dolores Brower, aka Spider, on April 19th in 2015, 10 years after, in a rural property near Leduc, suggesting that it may have been the work of a serial predator. And Now, I'm gonna go back to the time points here and pay attention, Rain. So basically, this woman, Corey, goes missing on May 9th,
Yeah.
2004.
Uh-huh.
Dolores goes missing on May 12th, 2004, 3 days later. And their bodies are found in the same place 10 years later, at the same time.
Definitely a work of one person, one killer.
I don't know, I'm not sure if one killer... What makes you think one killer? Couldn't it be... Like, are you saying the same culprit or culprits?
Culprit.
One.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of patterns involved here.
Just one.
Yeah.
You don't think there could be two people working here?
It seems like, just one.
Just one.
Yeah.
Okay. You're
'Cause
set on that.
I'm a little sad on it, mainly because the patterns are so similar, and the timeline is so short, and obviously the patterns. Let's just point out the obvious: sex workers, vulnerable people, vulnerable women, and they were found or they were killed apparently within the same area. It's very suspicious, no?
No, I know what you're saying. Like, definitely. Okay, so my question here is like regarding Dolores and Corey's, the two women that went missing, like 3 days of each other.
Yeah.
Within 3 days of each other,
Uh-huh.
and were found in the same area 10 years later. Their bodies, like, these two cases are 100% connected. Now, I have no doubts believing that these cases are connected. What I'm asking is the previous two cases that happened in 2003 and 2002. I'm talking a little bit about Edna Bernard,
Yeah.
22, and as well as Katie Ballantyne, 2003. I'm not necessarily hell-bent if they're connected to these two abductions happening in 2004. Because the 2004 abductions of Dolores and Corey, 100% connected, no doubt in my mind. The previous connections, I'm not sure. Also, we don't have the clear-cut answers to where the bodies were found, so we can't really kind of pinpoint. Maybe it would shine a bit of a light, but I could see that there's a connection potentially, and I think there could be a serial killer roaming. It's just that the timeline is a bit interesting to me. You kill someone in 2002, you kill someone in 2003, you kill someone, you kill two people in a week in 2004. It seemed like maybe the 2004 killings almost indicate to me someone who was out to kill right now really quickly. Not a killer who's like doing one kill per year. The 2004 killing seemed like very planned. Someone was out to kill sex workers in the area. You know what I mean? Seemed like a very specific time. I mean, there could be multiple serial killers working, or it could be one, you know?
Yeah. I still think there is one though.
Yeah, one.
Maybe that one killer was suppressing the urge to kill again.
Yeah, no, that happened in the past. We know
Yeah.
of cases that where the killer was trying to not kill for a while and then started killing again. You know what I mean? So that definitely happens a lot.
In my opinion, I'm a little more convinced about the fact that
One
there's
killer.
one killer who killed these women mainly
Yeah.
because of the patterns
Right.
and the demographic, and
Yeah.
also the areas where the bodies or the remains were found.
Yeah.
And yeah, the timeline is a little bit all over the place, but
You're still thinking it's probably one guy.
the pattern is way too straightforward for it to have multiple killers.
Okay, but before you are set on that, how would you explain that Edna Bernard was actually seen with multiple people in a vehicle? Remember?
Very interesting, yeah.
Yeah, so she was seen with multiple people. So obviously we don't know, maybe those people are innocent, maybe she was partying with them, selling sex, and then maybe she picked a hitchhiker and then she got killed. You know, we don't really know. We don't know if those multiple people are actually the people who did kill her.
Yeah.
But that's just my 2 cents.
That's a very good point, though.
And then the ultimate question now, do you think that Amber Tuccaro is connected to the previously mentioned 4 women?
I somehow do. Because it seems like, based on the patterns, the killer or killers seem to be preying on the most vulnerable. And even if Amber wasn't a sex worker, she was in a very vulnerable place, late at night. She was all completely alone. She was a woman, and she was also an indigenous woman. It screams vulnerable to me at that point in time. So yeah, I would,
Definitely, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I looked at the map, and there are actually a lot of missing Native American / sex worker vulnerable women in the Edmonton area. And now the very particular thing is that most of them are kind of missing and I think are connected to the general Edmonton city area. But for some reason, there are 5 cases. Well, in total, 6 cases. Just southeast of Edmonton.
Do you think there's a killer south of Edmonton that is different from...
Potentially, right? I mean, just looking
likely.
at the map, one of those. Now I said 6 because we talked about 5 so far. The other one I didn't mention because it happened in '76. So I kind of find it hard to connect cases from '76 to cases in the early 2000s. So I'm not even going to mention that. But there are 5 cases spanning in 8 years. You know what I mean? Southeast of...
It's a long time.
Of Edmonton, yeah. So, and the fact that the bodies were recovered from a generally close location indicates that this is the same culprit or culprits, meaning, since we know for a fact, well, almost a fact, that Amber was killed by the man heard on the phone call, so that same man who was heard on the phone call would have murdered all of these women. So what does that tell us about the man? Because think about individually, about all of the cases that we already talked about. Edna Bernard, sex worker, 28, in Edmonton, at a nightclub. Was heading to a nightclub, something with nightclubs. So basically, kind of similar to Amber's story. Then we have Katie Ballantyne, 40-year-old, sex worker, last seen in Edmonton. Also, Amber was heading in Edmonton. Dolores Spider was actually hitchhiking, potentially what Amber was doing. And then we have Corey Renee, was also last seen on May 9th, was apparently heading into to work as a sex worker. And now if all of these women are found in the same location and we have a very kind of strong connection that the same person or persons are doing this, what does this tell us about Amber? How did Amber get in the radar of this person? Was she actually gonna sell sex or something like that? I'm not really sure. How is Evangeline connected to this? She's shady. Maybe she's setting up. Maybe Evangeline knows the man in the phone call. I mean, there's so many kind of interesting possibilities when you start thinking about it. This is where I hope the audience members really kind of come out and kind of put this all together, because it's very hard to kind of get all the loose ends here.
Question.
Okay.
A very rough question. I haven't thought this through.
Okay.
Were the bodies of the women found in fields, right? If I remember correctly, you mentioned it.
I think so. I don't have the clear answer also.
Okay, let's just say in a field. And then Amber's body or remains were also found in a field.
Potentially.
Yeah. And at the audio, while we were listening to the audio, the guy kind of sounded like there's a hint of rural accent or rural...
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Rural voice. Do you think it's somehow connected? Like the fields where the bodies were found, the hint of the rural accent or rural voice. Do you think it could be a local who knew the twists and turns of the rural areas of...
Yeah, I think so, because I think I've read somewhere where law enforcement even kind of suspects that it could be a local person. Yep.
Not even a local person, like, yeah, a local person, but who knew the outskirts.
Yeah.
The fields.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe not even maybe someone who lives there or like somewhere. Like not a Edmonton kind of city person, but more of a rural person.
Exactly, right?
Yeah. No, definitely. Maybe even someone from Belmont. The guy was mentioning Belmont a lot, you know?
Yeah.
Who knows,
Could it be someone or some people who own a farm?
Yeah. I mean, at the very base of this, we need to get answered this one simple question. Who saw Amber get into the car?
Who was that witness?
Yeah, at 8 p.m., very specific time. How did that happen? Was she seen? Because it was reported that she was last seen. Then we should have a description of the car at least. I mean, but there's no information online.
Could have been Angeline.
Evangeline?
Evangeline, not Angeline. Evangeline.
Potentially, right? Potentially could be Evangeline, but we will kind of jump into... Can we jump into the suspects now?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay, so the first suspect that we have is actually a man named Patrick Carson. So 3 witnesses came forward and said that they recognized the man's voice in Amber's last phone call. They said that the man's name was actually Pat Carson, a well-known sex offender in Alberta. The law enforcement even released a public safety warning about Pat Carson. He has previous criminal record and would lure victims with newspaper ads regarding volunteering at his ranch, procuring underage sex workers, and choking to overcome resistance when involved as well. His methods usually include misleading ads on Craigslist, Kijiji, and other free forums, offering trades training, room and board in exchange for volunteer work at his ranch. However, the police could not find a link between Pat Carson and Amber Tuccaro and do not consider him a person of interest. He was released from Fort Saskatchewan Correctional Center on January 28, 2003, 7 years prior to Amber's disappearance and subsequent murder, after serving a sentence for sexual exploitation and touching a young person for a sexual purpose. He has a criminal record that includes previous convictions for sexual assault, procuring juvenile prostitutes, and choking to overcome resistance. All of these offenses were in Alberta. So this is the guy, Pat Carson. What do you think about the guy? We have some pictures of him.
3 witnesses?
Yeah, 3 women, I think, came forward and said that they recognized this man's voice and that this man sexually assaulted them in the past.
So why is he still free?
Because it's not enough proof. It's just...
He sounded like the man in the audio.
Yeah, but you can't really use that in court.
That's true, because there could be a lot of men who sounded like that.
Yeah, you can't really use that in court, you know. But it's interesting. But then I heard some other people claim that his voice doesn't sound like that. So, and I haven't heard his voice.
Yeah, me too.
So I don't know, but apparently that's it.
He has a farm.
He has a ranch, a horse ranch, and I read like there's entire Reddit posts dedicated to this guy because he keeps posting ads and luring people to work in his ranch. He actually has like a ranch house, okay? And get this, there's a bathroom in the upstairs, up on the 2nd floor, right? And you know how there's like a bathroom? You go inside of a bathroom and that's it. Toilet, bath, that's it. But inside of that bathroom, there's another door.
Yeah.
And that door is actually connected to his bedroom. So have you ever heard about this kind of a situation where there's a house,
Yeah.
there's a second story of that house, and there's Pat Carson's room, creepy old man's room, and there's a bathroom that anyone can go and use. But you go inside of the bathroom, and there's a door that leads to Pat Carson's bedroom. So there's two ways to get to Pat Carson's bedroom. Either the main door or the door that leads from the bathroom. And get this, it doesn't have a lock. So if you're out there taking a shit, Pat Carson can at any point in the day like
Take a peek.
like walk in. How are you?
I was supposed to mention that. I was supposed to ask you a question. Was there a lock? And was it
No lock.
twisted? Was it
he could
the
just,
other way around?
He could just walk in, and some people reported him listening while they were in the
That's
bathroom.
just so wrong.
So this guy is a certified freak.
Okay, if he was innocent, if he
Yeah.
was just a regular old dude,
Yeah.
and there's one bathroom in the upstairs bedroom, two doors, still a little weird, but if there was a lock and it was twisted on the other side, so you could lock it from the bathroom, it would have been okay. Not completely okay, it would have been weird, but it wouldn't be as creepy. But the fact that that guy was a sexual predator and that bathroom door didn't have a lock, complete red flag.
No, completely. And he's reported a million times. He's messed up. He's a sex fiend or whatever. Now we have information that he had recruited a young man named Richard that helps him to find more young people to work at the ranch. This is Richard, by the way. We have a picture of this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Richard, some young dude who
Yeah.
kind of finds young girls for him to kind of creep on them. It's a weird connection. Now, the thing is why I don't necessarily think it's him.
Is he a local?
Yeah, he's kind of from that area. He's from that area, but his ranch is actually a little bit in a different direction.
From where the bodies are found.
Yeah, but then, once again, it would make sense for him to dump bodies somewhere away from his farm.
That's true.
It makes sense. But then again, he was released in 2003. He was well known, and police even released a public kind of a thing about him. And also at the same time, it's already when he was released, so he was on high radar. You know what I mean? He had eyes on him.
Yeah.
He has law enforcement eyes on him. He's a perpetrator, you know what I mean? Sex offender. He had a lot of eyes on him. So for him to keep committing crimes was, I think, a little bit impossible. On top of that, if we think that all of the 5 women are connected, I don't think he could possibly be responsible for Edna Bernard's murder that happened in 2002 because he was only released in 2003. So if we think that one single entity committed all 5 murders, then I don't think Pat Carson could have done it because he couldn't have been involved in Edna's murder.
That's true. That's true.
That makes sense, right?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So, but is he someone who probably has bodies? Yeah.
Definitely. How about the ads?
Yeah, like
Did it stop?
no, he keeps coming up with new names for his ranch. He keeps changing his own name. He's no longer Pat Carson. He's like some Irvine something. He even changed his name multiple times to kind of keep doing this.
What's wrong with this guy?
He's, creepy.
Jeez.
Okay, let's jump to another theory that someone with a connection to the law enforcement did it because the Royal Canadian Mounted Police have a long history of neglect and abuse towards Canada's Aboriginal population. More than half of murders of Aboriginal women in Canada are unsolved. As recently as 2012, a woman reported that she was driven outside of town by police officers who raped her and threatened to kill her if she told anyone. This would explain the complete lack of rush by the police to deal with this case of Amber Tuccaro. It was as if they shrugged it off.
Do you think it was because of this or discrimination or racism? Or a mixture of both? Of everything?
I think it was racism. I think it was racism because it doesn't add up to me. How are you not investigating a missing person case who left her young son with an unknown woman and never returned to the motel? Like, this is clearly a missing persons investigation.
That's true.
And they even apologized years later. Law enforcement made a public apology to the family, and the family didn't accept it.
Yeah, definitely. I would support them. Don't accept it. Anyways, do you think the killer would have had a connection or had a connection with the police?
No.
Not at all. It's just pure racism.
I think it's pure racism. I don't think it was... I would say it's more likely that it's just racism rather than a cover-up.
Yeah, I agree with you.
You know? Let's move to another person, Dr. John Roberts. Now, I think you found this information, so I don't really understand this. I understand it, but it's hard. Okay, I'm just gonna read it. So, this guy, he was suggested by a man who could be a potential witness through Facebook comments on Amber's brother's Facebook post. He apparently is a hypnotist that was seen by the witness leaving the airport with Amber around 7:30 to 8 p.m. in a 2006 black Ford Focus. He said he saw John return to the airport without Amber at 9:30 p.m., looking tired out with a red face. According to comments left by the witness on Paul's, Amber's brother's Facebook post, John Roberts works as a driver at MAPS Water and Sewage in Edmonton. Usually was hanging around Boyle Street Coop or Herb Jameson shelter. The witness also claims that John Roberts' voice also matches the voice on the phone call. To add more, this guy John Roberts only apparently dates Aboriginal girls, and some of his exes told the witness how John used to choke them if they wouldn't listen to him. So we have this guy, and we even have 2 pictures from this guy.
Yeah, I did find this. Okay, there was a Facebook group, or was it a page? I can't remember at this point, about Amber Tuccaro. And mostly Tootsie, Amber's mother, and Paul, her brother, were posting a bunch of pictures and different kinds of posts in that certain page or group. And I found this post about Evangeline and her family. Amber's family were kind of suspicious about Evangeline because Evangeline's story would change a lot of times, most often than not. And so I kind of clicked on Paul, or Amber's brother profile.
Yeah.
And upon seeing this other post, his post about Evangeline again, I saw this guy who commented about the hypnotist.
The hypnotist, the Dr. John Roberts.
Yeah. So there was a long comment about him, like it was quite detailed actually, and so I just thought of including that. It's a very interesting way of like I don't know, telling people that he's suspicious of one person.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we don't know much about this guy, and some information were kind of contradicting because he was apparently a hypnotist, but at the same time he works as a driver. I don't really get it, but...
And on top of that, it's mentioned that he picked Amber from the airport.
Exactly.
Which Amber was already done with the airport. She went missing on the next day.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is just some guy who really hates Dr. John Roberts. Like maybe a bad client who like his hypnotism didn't like save his marriage or something like that. And now he wants to kind of throw him under the bus.
Perhaps, or he probably was a person who was very suspicious of Dr. John Roberts.
Yeah. I mean, from some of the first picture, it looks like he could do it.
Yeah, exactly. I agree.
You know what I mean? The first picture looks like the guy you don't want to mess with.
Exactly.
Looks like a pretty serious guy.
Mm-hmm. And also the fact that he only dates Aboriginal girls, that doesn't necessarily mean that he would kill one. Right? He would date them, yeah, but I'm pretty sure he won't ever kill one. Maybe. Who knows?
Yeah, just a lot of we can't really, assumptions.
Yeah,
that's
here and there.
That's a good point. And yeah, I mean, I guess to wrap up, what we have here in this case also is that Paul, Amber's brother, also suspects that Evangeline Maclean knows more, and he even posted on Facebook.
That's where I found a comment, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was one of the comments here.
Oh,
it was a thread of comments by the same guy.
Okay. So this guy was really going hard with that, Dr. Roberts. Okay, and then the last thing I would like to show you is that this map, and I'm showing everyone on the YouTube channel. You could always find this information on the YouTube channel. See, this is the Edmonton. This is the map where all the kind of, missing, Aboriginal women map from Edmonton area, and you could see on the bottom south from Edmonton there are these cases. There are only 3 here marked, but there's 2 more you could imagine. So this is why we think that there was a serial killer potentially roaming south of Edmonton in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is what we have today for the research, and I guess the question is, what do you think happened to Amber Tuccaro? So the first thing is, do you think that Amber Tuccaro's and the other aforementioned women's murders are all connected?
I somehow do.
So that would mean that the same man who was on the phone call is responsible for them?
Potentially. Yeah, because there's a common denominator, or denominators. They're all vulnerable women.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And although Amber was not a sex worker, she was very vulnerable at that time. She was completely alone, and she could have easily been seen as one.
Yeah.
So that's another
was probably hitchhiking.
Yes. And she was Aboriginal. Again, out of the victims, there was only one who wasn't. And
yeah,
what are the odds, right?
Yeah, very strange. Very strange. I'm not gonna lie, very strange coincidences here. So I do think that there is a connection. You know what I mean? It's so mysterious. I think you could kind of really write scenarios down and really even kind of try to connect everything, but that's not what we're trying to do here, because we won't get it right, because we don't have the critical information. What's the point of us trying to connect every little nook and cranny when law enforcement has more information that they have not released to the public? So we can't really investigate any more than this. I would say let's leave it here, and I would say let's leave it to the audience members.
But I have another question.
Okay.
Do you think this case would have been solved if only the Canadian police officers weren't as, discriminatory? If they put all their attention to it at the very first time they heard a report about it?
I think it could have been solved, potentially.
Me too.
If they released the audio sooner. Maybe someone,
or acted sooner, right?
Acted sooner, yeah. I think definitely. I mean, it couldn't help. It could only help,
Yeah.
to kind of actually investigate. How are you gonna solve it if you don't even try?
Which is pretty sad, since that area doesn't seem to be the safest place, or at least a safe place for women of color, Aboriginal women, or vulnerable women at that.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. But yeah, I think we can sign out. It was a good podcast, right? I would say let's leave it to the audience members. We have a few good commenters who are always very active in the YouTube comments. So hopefully they come out again and leave their thoughts. And generally, we have another interesting case lined up. Hopefully by the end of the week, but we'll see what we can do about that. And other than that, had a great show, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.
Yeah, and hey, please don't forget to let us know what you think about this case, and who do you think is the killer?
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see you guys. Take care.
Bye.